We are going to start a large project today. I think it's a large project. It's definitely a first time project. And that is our sand car body. What we have here is an Alumacraft 2-seat mid-engine, rear engine car. We have it re-caged from the belt line tube here up. We deleted the doors. There was a pretty heavy lack of tubes in here. So we have reconfigured everything. Luke built this out. He did a damn good job. It's still root passed. But right now what I want to do is I want to start getting just some early stages and perimeters done here. This is what I want to end up doing. This is a windshield car, so we're going to want to also source the glass. What I'm going to start with is a 22R Toyota, so like I want to say like a 93 Toyota pickup truck. Today's journey is going to be establishing this main hit. It's going to break down. It hits here kind of flat, and then it breaks outward. So we're probably going to do one piece. We're going to figure out where this cut is, our lower profile or body line, where that shape starts to come out. I have a rough rear view that also kind of teaches us some stuff. But really what's going to be important is, drawing the shape through. I might still land a panel in the back of the car here too, but getting this thing going back as far as we need to. Probably leave a little extra. And then just really figuring out where that cut's going to be here. Landing a panel that's natural, that's going to give us a platform. This is not really rolled on the bottom. You can see Alumacraft has a bend here, and then they applied a roll here. So really it's going to be figuring out what's natural and what the panel wants, and then applying Zeus buttons or quarter turn fastener plates onto the chassis that's going to hold that in right on that profile. We want to do this all strategically. So this body comes off. We want to also think about how the buttons are going to be. For a design feature, we don't want them just drawing straight across. We want them to kind of flow with the car. So getting the groundwork is going to be our first goal here. Running a big straight edge, probably put some clamps on here and just see what it does. I want to find a way to shoot this stuff where it's not constant talking, and maybe it's just watching as we work. But I don't know where we're going to fall on that, and all of this is a learning process for me too, as far as how to shoot the content effectively while still getting stuff done. I've thought about getting the car lifted up. I think just to ride height is going to be the most responsible thing to do. It's not difficult to work on right now, but I just don't want to screw something up with the proportions. So at least if we get it looking like where it's primitive level sitting, we're going to be in a space that feels right. So we're building the car to the presence of how it's mostly going to be. I am just collecting answers. before I get too far here. Run a little bit of tape in the problem areas like the shocks, just so we don't do something we regret later, which we're not recoating the shocks or anything with a different color. Suspension arms are going to get coated, so that's fine, but I don't want to start. We're going to deal with a lot of big pieces here, so I don't want to start doing something where I'm starting to run straight edges in here and we do a big no-no. I am going to leave the shocks on because I do need them as a reference. I don't necessarily need the front, but the fronts don't really matter. You going to school?
No.
I love you, baby.
Love you.
I'll see you later. So let's just get taped really quick. Quick and dirty. I'm on a mission right now for what I want to do. So when I go back and detail out this area, I'll get whatever I need to more dialed in for protection. I'm at least just gonna know what could possibly be bad here. I also think I got too long of a straight edge. I got another one over there that's probably about 9 or 10 feet. This one's probably 15. It's always good to have long straight edges. That's how Enzo had to use his teeth to get tape with my cut and rip pieces. It's so funny because you see him and he's 5 years old, just super proficient with getting pieces of tape with his teeth. Straight edge is telling me the natural line on that panel. I know there's a stick out here where there's the bend on the bottom of the chassis. But we have a really good window here because this is the part, this straight edge is doing what this panel is doing, but this has a kick out. I mean, like a very angular kick out. That we're gonna get a win on. And that can start way down there. Kind of see that angle there. So that angle, in this area, is this kick out. And it grows towards the rear of the car. It also goes through the car. So, not only can I use this straight edge for a show of where I can put a Zeus button safely, but I'm also gonna adjust this straight edge to the height of what this wants. And obviously it's got a curve in it, so we'll at least just put a straight through there and then we'll curve down through the bottom. So that's going to the top of that shape change where it starts to draw off. Is going to the bottom of the shaft of the bypass, which is a fixed position from the top. So that reference point is valid. And then we're drawing through. It does look like it has a slight curvature, so we're not going to get that win, but we're going to at least know a good starting point for panel or a Zeus button location here. And then on the bottom of that one. And my goal is just I want this piece on. I want to do both sides, which sucks. But we just don't want to get too far ahead, so we're going to want to jump back and forth It is what it is. We can probably get a little bit ahead on one side, but it's really easy to get too far. So I think that's the move, is get this surface done, this surface done, and capture it on the bottom of the car, and then move and use this as data to get it to the other side. This is going to be symmetrical, at least with what we're doing. Like, this is not super crucial. So if the car's a little tweaked, I can make this work. So I'll at least be able to use a reference to cut these pieces. Something else to think about is, well, that's a whole new thing, is thinking about where we're going to end up putting part lines. You know, like, where is this going to be? This can't all be one piece, so, you know, what does that look like to take it off? We have to have some kind of a separator for the hood, you know, and then does this panel go, and does it have some kind of a separation line in here somewhere? So building it big is probably going to be the move, but if I have panel separation, I want to get like a step roll, you know, a shelf to capture the other panel where they're both kind of level with each other. And it's not a panel overlap kind of thing, but one goes down and then the other one sets on top of that. So that is something to think about in this area. And I might just have to make a pretty executive call on like a design, because also that panel breakup design, that's also a detail that renders itself pretty visual thing on the exterior of the car. Or I don't want to just do some basic seam going up, but we're going to want to pull some kind of sick design that follows with the rest of the flow. So this is there. Checking our height over there. Back and forth game. So over the years, new things. This is my first sand car body. Did the truggy, but that was kind of a flat panel thing. This is definitely, you know, a big gnarly sand car body. So something that I've learned that seems to be more fair for the client too is to give an estimate. The good part is, you know, I draw these things, so that gives me a reference to see how involved it's going to be. It gives me, I can look at the welding, I can look at, you know, the metal shaping, I can look at the effort involved in it and get a proper timeline on that, at least something close. But when you're learning, it's responsible to me to base it off of a number instead of just an hourly. If it's something that's just a super involved project and you're like, dude, I don't know what it's going to take to do this, and the client knows, like, yep, we're just going to build something awesome, it is what it is, that's totally doable. But you know, when I got to take something like this on, I want to just give a number. It holds me accountable to the hours. It lets me be better, you know, use time management. And then it's fair. You know, it's not something where like, dude, this thing just goes on and on. When is it going to be done? How much more is it going to cost? I think you get there with some builds, but that's because it's a big old gnarly build. Stuff like this, you know, you have to do one to figure out like kind of a good baseline on what it's really actually going to take for time. And this is me right now. So that's why it also lets me sacrifice some of my time to share the process with you guys. We can do it together. One thing that's going to cripple me through this, I'll tell you right now, is going to be doing both sides, because I get so far into a focus mode that I just want to keep going on one side. Right now, I think I'm ready to start getting some Zeus buttons in here. The other thing is, I think we're going to also want to figure out this profile. And once I get that profile in, I'm going to lace Zeus buttons on the lower portion and the upper portion, so we get that whole blade fixed in here. And then that's going to let me really start getting this next piece going, which is going to be the kick out on the bottom. That's going to tighten into, the tube area here. All right, let's find a bucket. Get some Zeus buttons together. Ooh, that's what I'm looking for, a couple pre-made spring plates. Sometimes I have the guys do this. Get these things prepped. Yeah, we have quite a bit. Some here too. Okay, so these are our smaller guys. Smaller guys, okay. Normal stock. All right. So this is gonna get us going for now. Looks like there's about 30 in there. More stock. Yeah, cool. What's so important here is these, you can see if you can read what's going on, there's a, this top shelf, and then there's this, almost vertical panel in the middle, and then there's this one that kicks out towards us on the bottom here. But this also has a pretty steep transition going up to tag into this top surface. And when they're drawn, they're not straight lines, they're curved. And they're curved. So that is gonna set the tone. That is the focal point. That is the graphic design. Like, that's the design breakup right there. That's so important for this body. There's a couple things that are important here, but that is one of the primaries. And you can see the tension, the greatest area is maybe here, and then it tightens. And setting this up first, this is actually what we have to set up first. And then we're just gonna roll it, and we're gonna weld to it. We're gonna do a lot of seams on this thing. I'm not gonna do a bunch of metal shaping, I'm just gonna form it. But that is gonna be crucial for us to get these lines right per side for that main piece. And then we're gonna have to run that bastard through the bead roller. A little unnatural in this tube. If we want this thing to be fully natural, I'm not going to take a cut at that right now. It needs to be off to a really good start here, so that's what I'm going to do. And just put our one tab on here, float it. I almost need more prep. That's gonna come out. That almost gives us exactly what we want, but we gotta figure out the Zeus button thing. I see a couple wins to be had, but I gotta get more prep on this, unfortunately. So let's mark it. The reason I have this here, and actually in the middle of the shop, is so we can look at it. I want to be able to stand back, even if I have to move the car a little bit, move the welder, I can stand back and I can see it. That enables me to get the right perspective on what the body's supposed to do. Already the straight edge that's here, that is going to be the top surface of that straight edge is going to be where this starts to pull outwards, right? So, I want to make sure that's good. I almost want to put another one on top just to get a vibe check on both, because that is the tensioner of what's going on. And I might even move that on the opposing side so the flat that we're looking at is actually the flat of the panel. We're gonna get another run on this once we put the actual sheet in. But you know what's important is I'm tailoring the quarter turn, the Zeus button positions to this piece. So you can see I have it an inch above where I know this material is going to start doing a different direction. So it's going to go here, it's going to go down from the quarter turn, you know, spring plate at 1 inch, and then it's going to start its shape. You know, I have it marked like that everywhere that I think a button should be. We're not going to get perfect spacing, but you know, I'm going to make sure that that one is on the outside of this tube. This one's on the out, you know, that one's on the rear side of that tube. That one's on the front side of that tube, so it gives the spacing a little greater of a chance here. There's going to be a little void here, and then we're going to run this one on the outside and that one on the outside, or the forward-facing portions of the tube. That will get us a clean rip, but that's why I'm saying it's really important that I even look at it now, because these buttons are going to be tailored to exactly where the shapes are going. You know, you want them to run in unison with everything. Let me get it a little bit so I can know where we're going here. Now what I do is I don't, unless I am going to do a high stress area, I'm not going to weld this on, but I am going to put 4 tacks on it so it has enough balls to stay. And just in case I have to move them, it's not as much collateral damage. Pull that in right there. It's on a weird plane right there because that tube is kicking in. So I put, actually Zeus button like cocked, which is kind of what it wants. I'm already finding an error. It's more than an inch. That's that. So fall down the front. Oh yeah, I fell down the front. Cool. Finding inconsistencies. It's going to be very easy to make a big mess here. You're the culprit down here, huh? You're a jerkhead. Party. So I brought a bunch of the small clamps because the big clamps suck. Let's play the game, you guys. Right there. That's where I want you. You're pretty close. You're pretty close, buddy. that works right there. That's fine. Everybody's. Shift. Come on, buddy. Well, we got our 4 mains on. I think what I'm gonna do is think about the process. Do what I said I was gonna do. I think I'm just gonna thinking about whether to trim a piece of aluminum. Just send it all the way. Or if I want to just use double straight edges and figure out, you know, like I talked about, the top profile and then that lower profile. Belt line. Which would be like the window around the waistline higher. So we're going to get an illusion. Put another one on the belt line. Good line to go to. Good. So I drew to that line already. Other thing to consider here is going to be the windshield, which is coming this afternoon. But this gives me a grasp on what shapes I'm going to start pulling out of here. Growing, tightening. The other key ingredient here is how to make it not look like the other cars. Part of that can be made with adjustments later. Like I can't bank on this to be the main profile yet. That goes out, we're gonna spare that tube. So this is gonna be our flat. Then it's gonna grow out, come back in. You know, we're gonna have a shelf here that tightens. You know, all this is gonna grow out. There's gonna be a big blade that comes here because, you know, once this ends, this is gonna come out and then there'll be that blade. I don't know where that drop off is. It's gonna be somewhere out here, but you know, it'll be a transparent. That area is where you can put your hand through. You can see it briefly here. I can see the tube under there that we're dropping off. We also have a shape change coming over here. So really, I just want to figure out what's going on with this patch of panel. Feels pretty good. What I'm going to want to do next is solidify if this top profile line is going to be where this shape starts to come through. If it is, I need to take some measurements, mark it, measure it, prep an area for a Zeus button location. You know, follow suit, right? We have one Zeus button here, have a Zeus button here. Zeus button on the forward face of the tube here, another one. You know, keep doing the deal. We're gonna have to do something out here because that area is kind of an unknown in the front. Naturally, we're gonna wanna pull in, but it's definitely not gonna do some absurd crank after that tube. So I'm probably at least gonna draw this straight edge off and, you know, follow suit with what's down here. The Zeus tab here. So, you know, before, something that, like I said, is really difficult for me is getting so many steps ahead on a part that's a left or right part or a duplicate part, where then it's daunting to do all the repetitive work just to get caught up on the one side. So I think we're already at a point, I'm just gonna get these Zeus buttons on and then go over to the other side, get the Zeus buttons on, because once we get that, it's gonna turn into a thing where I might need to put one more plane of Zeus buttons on, but then it's gonna turn into a thing where we're doing a lot more of a different work, like type as well, different process, which is gonna be the aluminum. So I think it's better to just plot these things, get the dirty work done, go over to the other side, plot them, and then I think we're gonna have to figure out, you know, however this bottom portion mounts to the chassis. I think it comes out, so we need to have Zeus buttons, you know, plotted accordingly where this kind of comes out somewhere so we can run tin work on the outside, and I think it really kind of comes at an angle. But it definitely just doesn't go to that tube. So we got to have more shape coming out, and that's just going to be landing buttons. And, you know, since that's the bottom, we might land quite a few just to get the rigidity. This step, I guess I can work around it. Just wondering if it's even of any use. He's going to want a step. Maybe I can cut it off and reuse it. But I think I'm going to cut this off so we can get a real body out of this thing. You know, I'd rather treat it as a sculpture, and then once we get all the sculpt done, we can add in a detail like a step and notch into the tin work. Good thing we got a printer. Probably gonna have to print a bunch of these guys. And you're all smoked out. I don't need to tape them to the car because I like to walk with them. Once I get going on the bigger stuff, I'll probably start using an apron. Well, I'm favoring a little bit of mobility right now. I also use an apron for storage, mobile storage. I can put a lot of stuff in my pockets. So that was, how thick was that piece? That's 2 inches. This is going to be just to help our Zeus button allocation. Nice land on that other tube that was inboard on the last set. It's actually landing a lot better. Let's see what we got here. I'm going to honor that. I see. Okay. Let's see what's going on. It's favoring that. Let's play it. We're going to have massive spaghetti hoses going on here. Feelings of uncertainty on this facing one here. What we want to do here, just like I said, feelings of uncertainty. I'm gonna set it in a little bit. I got an intuition on this thing. I have to kind of plan ahead as far as what we're going on down there. It's also funky looking chassis. It's got a bend going on at that point here. Yeah, there's a bend going on. Jeez. Just got to be mindful. So I'll probably demo the step right now, and then get this lower tier going. Just want to figure out where it's going to draw in, because I'm not going to be able to put a Zeus button down here because the shape's going to get so tight. I'm also looking to do maybe something cool where part of the tube is revealed here. So I'm going to see. I'd like to have a little scallop like this where the tube is showing. I gotta go blind on this one, so it ruined our tungsten last time. All right. This one wants to go in a little bit, and then we had a special brake. So I'm gonna go put some brake into the Zeus button. So some of this stuff, we're gonna just take a measurement and cut it rough, just to get it on the car. I wanna make sure that spring plate hits the same as the top one, because when the panel goes on and you tighten it, it's gonna bounce that, or that'll bounce it into a panel deformity if it's not right. Upgrade the tack package on these. You know what I didn't do yet? I didn't get the lower portion done. I'm telling you, I gotta, my discipline is just lacking lately. in like the little ways, and all of it matters. Discipline is discipline. So it's when you get that feeling that you don't want to do something, right? Oh, I don't want to have to do that because it's not exactly what you want to do, or not as rewarding. You know, big stuff is like go to the gym, right? No matter what, I go to the gym every day, no matter what, unless we have a big dirt bike ride, and then I preserve my energy because we do a large loop, a couple loops, but little things, right? I go, oh man, I don't want to clean the powder coat off the lower chassis tubes. Oh, I don't want to cut the tube off. I'd rather put aluminum in. It's all bitch shit. So I'm gonna do it now. Preach what you teach, right? I'm gonna get the torch out of here. I'm gonna get the welding helmet out of here, the pedal, cut these steps off, get it done. While we're doing that, what do we want up here? I think that should draw in. Put some X's where I want the Zeus buttons. We'll get that spacing right though. Yep, I want to get the spacing right. I want to measure it all out. Kind of a cool shape. I like stuff like this where it's got a roll in it and a bend, like a hook. And it's got tension where it's, you know, it's abrupt here and then it's pulling back and smoothing out. I'm thinking we maybe try to reuse those. Let's see how fast we can do this. You ready? I used to know this guy when he was like super nervous about using ear tools. He's like, man, one of the guys I worked for over at this shop told me that with air tools, you can't mess up. And with electric tools, you can mess up. I'm like, yeah, but you also fucking take forever. I need a blowjob, man. That was pretty quick. Already looks better. Yeah, these were facing like this, and honestly, I think they should face like that. And we'll slide them somewhere different if we have the actual real estate when the body goes on, because there can be a lot more dimension. Gone through and gotten all the prep and the layout done for our lower buttons. Quite a few, every 8 inches. Oh, need the digi. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put some angle on that bottom one. Looks like we're gonna come up short. Whoa, okay. So what I wanna do is I wanna make sure we're not flat and we're building up. There's some pretty significant changes going on here. There's a bend down here, slight bend here. So when this panel goes on, it's gonna do something to us, and I hope it doesn't affect the body line too much, because we have that really prominent line, and it's kind of a bummer because it's doing that. But regardless, I want this thing to have a approach. Best thing I can do is get these things close, as far as getting the Zeus buttons where they're on tangent. So what I'd want to do, I guess first things first, figure out an angle that's something I like. Nothing too crazy. So let's call it 20 degrees. And this is going to be a very small detail, but it is going to be a detail, and it is going to matter. Get all this stuff going. What I want to do with this is, at least I'm hoping that we can just get a tack started. Put the digi on the straight edge. Hey, Fina. What? Who's that?
thing? Oh my God, who's this? Oh my gosh, who's this? Oh my God, who is this thing? Oh my goodness, who is this? Oh my gosh, 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 oh my. Hi, you're so good. You're so good. I know, you are so good. You're the mama. I know. Okay, no more, dude. Chill, bro. Okay. All right. Go say hi to the other boys. You're a good girl. Yes. You're always a good girl. You're the best girl. So I'm going to digi this thing like this, right? I'm going to set it up here exactly how I want it, and I'm going to put a spring plate on there. You know, what usually happens is it makes it a little difficult to hold everything, and sometimes when you do a clip like this, a little too aggro of a program. And you don't, the other thing too is you don't want to get the magnets too close, because TIG, I've seen like this thing that holds the Z-button plate. I saw it on Instagram or something. But you're forgetting that TIG welding, don't zero. No zeros. Perfect. It holds the plate for you, but the bottom line is these buttons hate, or TIG welding hates magnets, anything magnetized. Just enough to party. Let's do it like we had it. I think that was working pretty well. Something I can kind of, it's a bad juice button. I run into a lot of instances in life nowadays, like weird things, like say there's this bucket right next to me of spring plates, and by no design, I didn't count how many there was in there or anything. Or sometimes I go grab handfuls of bolts to put into a mesh panel, and it's the exact number that I need. And it's like these things happen a lot, and I'm like, what is that? Because it's like undeniable. Oh, okay, so those are going to put me in a weird spot to weld, so I'm going to keep doing this, and then I'm going to come back and get on my back or something and put our tacks on. What I was saying about the bolts and stuff, I don't think we're going to get it on this one though. I think we are going to run out of these buttons, or sorry, spring plates, and we'll just have to go make more. I remember when I was like 20 years old and I went into this place called S&S Engineering in Azusa, and I remember I was building Jake Tempe's truck in my garage as Ranger, and I went in there and I bought I thought it was so sick. I bought like 10 spring plates, 10, springs, Zeus springs, 10 Zeus buttons, and I was like, hell yeah, dude, doing it, I was stoked. I'm like in scale now. We order
Zeus buttons by, I don't know, 150 to 200 quantity. Still grateful to be building cars. Still grateful to be able to learn, progress. That's something, that's part of life that I want to live for, show up for. And I like to watch the guys do it now. My team is learning, progressing, struggling, being frustrated. Luke was so frustrated today that he wanted to quit. And he came up to me and he's like, I can't get it. So I'm not gonna be able to get it. I'm shaking, man. I don't know what to do. I gotta do something else. Like that. That is such a pure feeling. And I value that so much. And then you get the opportunity to help them in a way that I never got. Nobody taught me anything. Nobody gave me help when I was struggling. As a matter of fact, most of the places I worked, some people would observe you struggling and they would let you sink. Out of insecurity or, I don't know. And I say that knowingly now because now when I started learning where I was making mistakes or whatever, I'm like, dude, this guy knew I was fucking up. And he wasn't doing tough love shit. He just didn't want to help me. But he knew it. But now I get the opportunity to teach these guys and help them through. And I love it. Put some tax on. Some real tax. I'm also gonna probably want to do a check again on the angles, make sure we got them. So if you see what I'm doing, I'm kind of grabbing on, after I tack it, I'm reheating it and I'm pushing it with my hand just to seat. I'm seating the edge of the bracket so it's tight. So when I go in to weld it on the initial weld, not the tack, it's going to be tight. It's not going to have a little air gap in there because even a tiny little air gap, when you're trying to get a nice precision weld, especially on something thin, short like that, you want the best fitting you can get. I usually have the guys put together the spring plates as just kind of filler work, but right now we're in a need, so we'll probably just do 10 for now, and then I'll have one of the guys do a bunch of them. This is called mindless work. Mindless work. Gives me time to start thinking about what I'm gonna do next. Gotta be careful though, because you get super deep in your head when you're doing mindless shit. If you listen to a podcast, sometimes that's helpful, but usually I'll still get in my head while I'm listening to a podcast while I'm doing mindless shit. I was thinking about Andrew Neil right now. Used to have a friend named Andrew Neil. I think he's in Colorado now. I think SoCal was tough on him. And I could only hope that the move made things better. Thinking about riding horses. Thinking about how beautiful our ride was on Sunday with my wife. How slow the pace is, the noises, the smells. Little moments of peace. Moments where you're grateful just for where you're at right then and there. Moments where sometimes we feel like, you know what, if the world ended right there, I'd be bummed out to not see the future. But I'd be grateful for the things that I've experienced. So I got some extra springs left. Not the time. And get all the little, I don't like to drop these on the floor. Little pulls from the rivets. I think they're really hard to clean up and they get stuck under places, and it's just careless to let them go on the floor. Just not helpful. So it's easier just to collect them. It's a lot easier to pick these up when I have another hand. It all just adds up in the end. Something I just realized, the bead roller is almost at the same height as the table. And that's gonna be a huge thing, because one of the other things that I'm thinking about right now while I'm getting busy stuff done, you know, I thought about, okay, we're gonna run this big panel first on each side, and we're gonna have to roll up, you know, on each side to start getting a radius going. And usually, if you're using a bead roller, sometimes you have to have like a pipe stand or something so it doesn't fall off, or you have to have someone holding it. I think I'm going to be able to send it right there on the table. Let's get this welder stuff picked up. Get all the torch and the pedal picked up, and then I think what we'll want to do is get some rough measurements. Just cut a panel that's way bigger top to bottom and a little bit front to rear than we need, and let's locate them on both sides. And let's start putting some tape on there, you know, and getting a really good understanding for where those, remember the top surface starts, you know, or those bevels, you know, the shape changes. So let's just get that wall dialed in, get those highlights dialed, and then trim them and start rolling them. So we'll do an 8-footer, 18 max. Leave room, so do 19. And then from the top up here, do 12. A foot in, do a foot in. Draw it on a piece of paper. What was this, 14? 12. It's 12. Yeah, okay. Times 2. Pretty cool. 5 by 10, 3/4. We're gonna need something to kind of get elevated though, huh? Maybe this guy. One day we'll get a tripod. All right, well, I found this piece to start with. So I'll see if we can get a win off getting 2 rips of this thing. Gotta get my drawing. So we have our drawing, regs. We're gonna need a straight edge. We're gonna wipe this down because this thing is dusty and dirty, plus the blue on there. All the branding doesn't help anybody with trying to understand what they're laying out. It's going to be a big scale project as far as the size, you know, the volume of aluminum that we're using here. I've done stuff like a roof. Remember the Truggy was pretty involved, but it was what you'd call flat panel stuff. It wasn't dimensional, really. The hood was, the hood hawk and the scoop were dimensional. But not like this. This one's going to be transformative on this car. We're going to get a completely different monster out of the car. You want a way to dry your hands out? If you guys are into that, just do some raw acetone on a rag and you'll get that super dry. Age them out a little bit, you know? So we got a, what's that, 19? This doesn't have to be super accurate. Thinking we're not going to be able to get this anyways with one sheet. It is what it is. Yeah, no way. Am I doing this the right way? Yeah. It's a big ass rip of aluminum. Yeah, it is what it is. Don't be fucking lazy. I'll just get this piece cut. This table will definitely press the vertically challenged fellas like me. You know they get shorter when you get older? I don't know if that's just because I compressed my back so gnarly. But I know as a fact, when I was younger, I was almost 6 feet. I was 5'11" and 3/4. And now I'm 5'10". I don't know what that comes from. All right, let's go hardcore cutting. Let's get, this thing's gonna roll on us pretty heavy. So again, I figure we're gonna have to trim this again. The question is, do I cut 2 of these right now or do I fit this so then we don't have to do the trimming process on both sides? The answer to that is you get this side on, you get this right where you want, you mark it, you come back, you trim this, and then that is your layover for your driver's side panel. So we'll get this cut, and then we're gonna put it on the car. Couple things to show you. I like to run a drill bit that is under 1/8. What I do is I run a 2 drill setup right now, and I have a 7/16 rotor broach. The pilot for the rotor broach is 1/8. The trick here is if you run something that's still a pilot hole that will activate and hold this thing as a pilot because it's tapered on the front, you don't get the the piece of material stuck in here. You know, it's like a cookie cutter. If you have an 1/8 inch hole with this thing and you drill in, the piece gets stuck in here, and sometimes it sucks to get out. So these are sprung, they're spring loaded. So if you just have a smaller hit, when you go in there, it'll just ping, pop the thing out, and you're never trying to get it out with a pick or something. The next thing is the locators. So what we want to do right now is we're going to want to locate the panel onto all this, onto all the spring plates. So what I use is a locator button. It's slotted, sticks in there. If I'm ever facing down, I just put a piece of tape on here to hold it. And pretty much I get my panel on here and I go ping, and I just tap it, and it leaves enough of an indication that's essentially like a center punch. And you don't hit it that hard, you just hit it enough to see where it is. And then this is what I'll drill. I'll use that under 1/8 drill bit to go in there. But right now I'm gonna hang the panel. I'm gonna put these on just 2 selective areas, where then when I take them off, I can go back, I can put a Zeus button into those areas, and it'll hang the panel, and then I can get all the other ones dialed. Feelings that I would have made it a little taller. There's kind of a belly to it. How are we going to get that? Scoot it back. Get some real estate out of this thing. And that is why we have tape on shit. I always cut big, and I honestly wish I would have cut a little bigger. When I look at the drawing, that curvature, there's a lot there. And I'm just trying to figure out spatially what we want to do, because I don't know if I have the real estate to get the curve. I feel like part of that belly wants to lean into there. But I also don't. So I'm gonna have to just toy around for a second. I also know where the cutoff is for the coilover, but I'm super good on running this thing deep and then getting it trimmed up all sick. I think this almost wants to be straighter. This area here wants to be a straighter hit. It doesn't want to be angled like that. Okay, so that's good information. So what I can do is lower this, because this is too much taper. This is good. Good thing we didn't stab any buttons yet. Yeah, okay. Got it. That's pretty close on that one, though. Little adjustments. I think we should do it. You gotta start somewhere. Got 2 of these located so far. Got the rest of the buttonholes filled up. Rest of the holes out here. I don't know. All right. Got a rogue hole, man. That sounds kind of weird, doesn't it? Good part is I put an accidental hole back there and it's out in no man's land. And I think it's a spot where it's not going to actually matter. To be determined. So what I'm going to do is also put an indicator back here so I don't get confused. You also want to clamp that. This panel's floating in a lot of areas, and what that does for me is it gives me a little bit of a red flag on how we want to make sure everything's going to be happy with each other. Number one thing I don't want to do is have a dip. Okay. I'm starting over. I feel like I was settling on this piece. I think it needs to be longer. I think that curve on the bottom is substantial. I think that I'm gonna have to start with something like this before I start trimming less. And I don't want to short myself on this, it's too important. At the same time, I started building the lower rocker, which is the one we put all those bottom facing buttons on. That was also not enough. So, just got into a weird mood. I think the best thing I can do here is to push through. And it's just other stuff. I transferred all these guys. So I should be able to get this thing cut out pretty quick here. I always try to blame myself first. There's a serenity prayer. And it talks about so many things you cannot change. The courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I think you can really run that in life. And one of the things you can't change is other people. Sometimes I just go through waves. It feels like the universe expands and contracts. And, it hits simultaneously. Let's cut this bastard out. Hope that it fits again. I gave it some extra inches. Hoping it's just what we need. Getting to a point with this thing, even though we don't have it on the car, the top rail is definitely right where I think it should be. So I'm gonna cut it. I'll cut it straight where I know if I roll it or something. I'm trying to get a minimal cleanup on this thing. That means minimal file work. Minimal, I guess file work. We're clicking the 12th hour here. The straighter you cut this thing right now, it's just like prep on stuff. The straighter you cut it now, the more focus I put into get this good cut, the less work I have in the long run. Because it all flows downstream. That's our next culprit. It's a little wide. So those are big. Something I want to pay attention to with this, because the glass is wide. It's going to be inboard, or it's going to be outboard, I think. And if it is outboard, I need to be very careful on what we're doing here, and how we build that part. This is the rocker, like the lower rocker panel that I had. It just needs size out here. Tie all the way in where that comes through. So I can actually use this panel that we started with, and I'll recycle this, and then I'm going to have just enough left for that. So that's a 4x8 sheet, just so you know, right through there. 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 piece, 4 piece, we're done. Best guy for the job. This will give us a good base for this other one, just to kind of see if we can even fit this in the takeoff piece. This one's trimmed out super rough, so I think we're gonna get away with this no problem, because I left a bunch of meat on the bone still for us to trim out. What I want to do is I want to just arts and crafts that car. Put just some rough shit on. See what the shapes do. See what the transitions look like. Get the wheels turning like that. We have the sketch. Notice I don't say that's a rendering or a drawing. It's a sketch. And that's all that is. That sketch is just simply an indicator of concept. It is not one-to-one. It's just like, hey, if we can shoot towards getting this thing to speak that same language on the drawing, and we're good, you know. Same with the client, you know, have him approve of that thing. Yep, I like where that's going. We went through a design process on that one too, kind of like the other digital design stuff with the client, you know, and came up with that one. That was not just a swing and a hit. That was a couple different swings to get the right land. Big old long guy, boy. He's gonna see all these curly cues and lose his mind. Definitely the biggest ones I've ever cut. Okay. I think I'm gonna get a jump and drill out the holes on the transfer holes on the one panel, and we're gonna go back to the car.